Hello, boys and girls. Welcome back to League on Lock, where we've been waiting on some spicy LCK free agent news. We already knew, obviously, everyone looking to SKT. They were the super team from 2019, back-to-back LCK champions, MSI, and world finalists. And Faker's back, Teddy's back, Effort's back. All right, let's just get the whole gang back together. Obviously, we already talked Khan not coming back with the squad, which, okay, that's a pretty big shot. He had a pretty solid season, solid year with SKT. I think he performed maybe even a little bit above what people were expecting, so that's going to be a bit of a loss. But the rumors were Clid, he's a free agent, but he should re-sign with SKT. It was rumored he might even sign for 3 years with the squad. Well, no, that is not the case. He first went to his Facebook and said he's not coming back to SKT, and very shortly after, the team that swooped him up is Gen.G. They started things off by getting Ruler and Life coming back into the bottom lane, which looked like a really solid start, and things only got better from there. Not only did they steal Clid away from SKT, but they also got Bdd, one of the, if not, I mean, right up there with potentially Chovy if he's a free agent, as the most sought-after mid laner in the LCK. They also signed Rascal, formerly of Dragon X, who, if you remember, at times in spring and summer looked like him and Cuz. Why were these guys ever subs on any roster? They looked fantastic. He did have some inconsistencies, so he's obviously the biggest question mark on that roster. But you look at that, and that is absolutely a roster that you could be confident in competing for an LCK title. I don't think anyone was expecting Gen.G to come in and steal the offseason, all the headlines, but that's absolutely what they have done. They even brought in world champion Ambition and kind of included him in the announcement video. He's there with Clid and Bdd, giving everybody watches. Maybe that's why they got Gen.G over SKT. SKT, did you promise them free watches? These are the things you got to look at when you're going into free agency. But super cool to see Ambition still so involved with the organization and franchise that he helped bring another world championship to. Obviously, you don't crown the champions of a split in the offseason, although we do love to hand out championship offseason moves. And this looks like right now Gen.G, wow, absolutely stealing the show. We know Clid performed at an MVP level, and he's going to have huge expectations. And Bdd, KT Roster, we know that the entire year for 2019 was a pretty large disappointment. When you have Bdd, Smeb, and Score, you're expecting to at least make the playoffs in the LCK. Obviously, that did not end up happening. They were not even close. They were in the opposite, taking part in those promotion tournaments. But Bdd was really the lone bright spot, and he was, for how bad a lot of the games were, the fact that his KDA was still relatively high, he still had the most solo kills out of any mid laners, and was still putting out most of the damage for his squad, because the bottom lane, I mean, 3 different AD carries played for KT throughout the entirety of 2019. Now that Bdd has the incredibly consistent force of Ruler and Life, who, by the way, were stomping a lot of the laning phase throughout both splits. And remember, Gen.G was 1 game away from making playoffs, and a lot of that was because of Ruler and Life. But now Bdd has that consistent bottom lane and consistent, reliable carry in Ruler. I think you're really going to be able to see Bdd perform at what we're more accustomed to seeing, like we saw in 2018. And there were, again, those moments in 2019. But when you're a star player on a struggling team, you know that there's going to be some plays where you overstep and try and do a little bit too much to try and win a team fight or win a game for your team, and you end up looking like a bit of an idiot, to put it bluntly. But Bdd still didn't have many of those moments. I think he still absolutely showed that he can be a top-tier mid laner in the LCK, and that is something that Gen.G, and if you're a fan of Gen.G, you're absolutely hoping to see here going forward. And they look good. On paper, we've seen it in the past. 2017 KT, it should have been a much bigger super team than what we even see out of this GenG roster. Ended up not making Worlds, but they were competing and making LCK finals throughout the entirety of that year. So that is something that we could maybe be expecting with this GenG roster, especially with the amount of turnover that we're seeing. Who knows what's going on with Griffin and all the drama surrounding them. And now it's a huge question mark for SKT because Clid is not there. Khan is not there. What's SKT going to do now? Who do they fill in the top side of that map? Because Haru is probably, I believe, leaving the team as well. So it's fully a new jungler and new top lane that's going to be coming in to SK Telecom, and we have no idea. I mean, who's really even available? Peanut comes back. It is a huge loss for them to not sign Clid, and we don't know if, obviously, Clid probably didn't want to come back to SKT. Maybe the financial rewards were a little bit greener when it comes to Gen.G. We know both of those organizations should have quite deep pockets when it comes to signing star-studded rosters. So for Clid, it's probably just about his future. But SKT, it is a huge loss for them. We know that he was the most important and the best player on the squad throughout all of 2019, and he was consistently, at worst, the second best jungler in the LCK behind Tarzan. And during his peak, I mean, in those head-to-head matchups, he got the better of him in both finals, at the World Championship and at the Midseason Invitational. Clid was far and away the most important, the most pivotal player for SKT. So we can't understate how big a loss this is going to be for them. I don't think we see SKT necessarily as the best team in the spring split at the very least. Of course, we have to wait until we see what these signings are, but I think it's very much going to be dependent on where all the Griffin players go, and that is really pretty much it. That's the big get. If all four of them stick together, do Tarzan and Chovy go together as a package deal somewhere? If they can go over maybe to Dragon X to pair up with Deft, then I think you're talking about Gen.G and Dragon X as kind of the two best teams, at least if you're talking about preseason rankings, before you actually see any action on the Rift. But Gen.G, whew, absolutely killing it in this offseason. Rascal's going to be the big question mark in that top lane. I mean, he's still relatively unproven. He had some stretches, 3 to 4 weeks on Kingzone last year where you saw him kind of playing at almost an all-pro level in that top lane. But we've seen him, even at Rift Rivals, he played against the Shy and held his own in that matchup. He wasn't getting completely destroyed, which is something that a lot of top laners are not capable of saying. So I think if Rascal can kind of find that solid form that he had in the middle of season with Kingzone and without all that surrounding drama within team management, you got to imagine that played a large role in it. So I think we'll see more consistency out of him. And if that happens, then the sky is the limit for this new Gen.G roster.